We were young ones, handsome and slim. And then life caught up with us, along with chores and unwanted kilograms. This is what happened to BMW M3, which transformed from a 1200 kilograms E30 into a 1600 kilogram giant F60. Sure, current M3 has twice the horsepower, but in a sports car you want less weight and my whole opening sequence is rubbish, because BMW M2 weighs 1570 kilograms, making it just 40 kilograms lighter than the M3. M2 has 370 horsepower, which is 61 less than the M3. It's also about 0.2 of a second slower from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, but at the same time, it's also around 18,000 euro cheaper, which is one of several reasons why you may want to consider it. Last year I drove the M2 on Hungaroring. You can watch this video by clicking here. I've got half a tank left, so take your time. Okay, let's do this. Besides reasonable price, at least compared to the M3, M2 has something else which the bigger car is missing. It's wild and exciting. I picked the car up on a warm day, tarmac was dry, but M2 spun wheels through the first 3 gears and I wasn't even hammering it. And I had traction control and ESP on. In an M3 you have to do something really dumb to break traction and you'll probably end up in a ditch doing so. But that's a different story. Driving an M2 you'll end up on a lamp post much earlier unless you know how to control the car. On the plus side, you'll be spinning at a much slower speed, so chances of stopping are greater.
So, you pay 18 grand less and have much more fun much earlier. I call this a good deal. That's if you like roller coasters. Where does all this unruliness come from? I'd say it's largely due to the DCT-M gearbox. Theoretically, a double-clutch transmission should be smooth, but this one is very aggressive regardless of what driving mode you're in. And M2 has only 3 driving modes: Comfort, Sport and Sport Plus. It doesn't have the 81 combinations of steering, suspension, gearbox and engine settings like the M3. This is not even an option on an M2, so missing are the 2 M buttons on the steering wheel. I suspect the wildness comes from the way the gearbox is programmed. I assume transmission thinks that a mildly dynamic takeoff from the lights justifies going into DEFCON 1, and fast, aggressive shifts end in breaking traction every time 465 Newton meters hit the rear wheels.
I'll say it again, if you want a sports car, you buy one with a manual transmission. Only then you control the car, not the other way around. Sure, a couple of months in the M2 and you'll learn how to cope with drive logic transmission, but it'll scare you to death more than once.
And then it only gets scarier, because after the aggressive comfort mode, there is the wild mode, OMFG mode, and then you can turn the traction control off and go into Bavarian Chainsaw Massacre mode.
And then there's the sound. In the M2 you can hear the engine and exhaust regardless of the driving mode. Designers assume this is not a car for a wimp who cares about what the neighbors think, but for a macho type who will wake up the whole block every time he wants to take a ride. Here I'd like to apologize to my neighbors who didn't get to sleep late because I had to leave for the set at 5 a.m.
Let's talk about the steering. Steering ratio is expressed in 2 numbers. The first one represents the number of degrees you have to turn the steering wheel in order for the wheels to turn 1 degree. In case of a bicycle or a motorcycle, steering ratio is 1:1. In case of a normal car, we're talking about something like 20:1 steering ratio. M2 takes its steering from M3 and M4, which have 15:1 steering ratio. However, that's still nothing compared to Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio, which has 12:1 steering ratio. I see Alfisti high-fiving and partying like it's 1999.
Brakes, 380mm discs in the front, 370mm discs in the back are also transplanted from the M3. They are effective, but in M2 there is no carbon ceramic option. Tires are 19-inch Michelin Pilot Supersports, 245 by 35 in the front, 265 by 35 in the rear, and they have to fight for traction. Under the bonnet is a 3-liter 6-cylinder engine with a twin-scroll turbocharger. Twin-scroll makes boost across a broad rev band, but at the same time it is lighter than a double turbo which the M3 has. So, as you probably guessed, this is not the same engine as in the M3. If I were to complain about the interior, I'd probably like better lateral support in the seats, but then it would be harder to get in and out. I'd also like slightly more place for my knees, but I expect a taller or a shorter driver may have a different experience. I'd definitely get the traffic sign recognition for €320, which is peanuts compared to the $4,000 for DCT, which I'd skip. For a coupe, M2 is relatively practical. A fat average height presenter fits in the back, 40-20-40 split seats are standard. The boot may have 390 liters capacity, but from my point of view it's difficult to fit all my gear. But then you're probably not carrying filming gear with you everywhere like I do.
Under my Alfa Romeo Giulia review, I did get some grief from Alfisti, who said I should not expect anything from cars, and I should not expect anything from Alfa Romeo, in particular because Alfa Romeo is a beautiful car, not an ugly one, like a BMW, for example. So I should not expect to have only one button to open the boot. Why would I? I should also not expect to have this huge airplane cabin size suitcase come out without any problems. So I don't expect anything like this from an Alfa Romeo, but this ugly BMW does it no problem, but it's an ugly BMW.
I like the way the M2 looks, even if in terms of size it's closer to E46 than E30. With prices starting at just below €60,000, it's hard to find a rear-wheel drive competitor on the European market. An interesting niche, although if you don't like fighting for your life all the time, you'll probably choose a safer and faster Audi RS3 or Mercedes A45 AMG, which also happens to sound like a man gargling and having an orgasm at the same time.
And what do you think about BMW M2? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. New episodes every Friday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.